Hello everyone, Death Stimulator here. Today I bring you some more Naval Action with the post-game commentary. I bring you a interesting matchup with myself playing the Cerebus once again. I'm joined by a Bologna, a Constitution and a Surprise, and we're versing a Bologna, 2 Trincomalee, a Navy Brig and a Lynx. Now this match it starts off rather boring, so we'll be skipping ahead briefly with it and picking up once the action occurs. Unfortunately, I get a little bit too far ahead with my ship and spend a large portion of the match just trying to get back to the action. With the 2 Trincomalee here, I take some shots at them with my long nines, and the reason I separated myself initially was that I was trying to, trying to take advantage of that range distance just to pepper them a little bit, but it didn't work out optimally. Instead, I ended up leaving a large portion of my fleet at the mercy of the enemy. Now, as you can see, I'm just really working my way back against the wind, trying to take advantage where I can. I'd like to say that I've improved a little bit with my sailing, just enough that I can actually work my way back against the wind as opposed to before where I just turned too sharply into it. Unfortunately, my shooting is still as bad as ever, as many of these shots I've overall undercompensated for. Against the rather large targets of the Trincomalee, I probably would have been better off going for their sails and their masts, rather than going for hull shots like I have here. Never underestimate those kind of shots. Now, in the distance you can make out the 2 Bolognas engaging with each other, and the Lynx. Do keep an eye on that little Lynx this game, because it's rather effective, and its positioning is fantastic. In general, it doesn't take very much damage, and is a real nuisance. Well, I shouldn't say a nuisance, because it actually has an impact, a measurable impact on the performance of the team throughout the game. Now, as you can see, just weaving backwards and forwards, half moving back and half waiting for them to catch up as they bring themselves upwind. Anyway, by this point I've almost gotten back to them, but it's a good, 5 minutes or so before I'm really able to get back in the action, and I made the mistake of switching to double shot too early, so I wasn't even able to assist in that manner. Once again, probably better off using chain shot than I was. Fortunately, even though I've put myself directly into the wind, I was able to recover reasonably well with a little bit of manoeuvring. Alright, so now just slowing back down again as we finally get our chance to engage reasonably against these Trincomalees. Still getting messed up by the waves a bit. I just really was not accounting for the pitching of my ship here. Yeah, just a slight collision there, which was very fortunate for us, I think. And I'm just out of range, just that little bit. Massive explosions coming from the Trincomalee and then the engaged ships there. Not too happy with the degree of which I was undercompensating for a lot of these shots. I'm just falling short repeatedly. But that's alright, I guess. It's all a learning experience. One thing that you will see from me a bit more often now is variability in the types of cannons I've been using. Basically, as much as I like the long 9s for their range, the amount of time that you spend reloading them compared to their damage output, their damage per second or DPS, is not particularly good. And I do want to have at least some of my guns firing a bit faster. And with the Cerberus and the Surprise, having guns on 2 decks means that I can actually vary those guns up a little bit, which works quite nicely. few shots off now, which is good. Actually helping out my team, finally. And I've just got to be careful that I don't run into our allies, as is wont to happen. I'm just trying to see what's happened here. I did take quite a pounding to the front of my ship. I believe, by the look of it, sorry, I'd mistaken that ship for an allied ship, so I hadn't been attempting to take too much action against it. There's a boarding action going on in a distance, and the Lynx is just keeping its distance, firing off the odd shot. I try to do a little bit of damage to it, but it's mostly ineffectual at this range. Such a small target, and I've probably spent an inordinate amount of time trying to hit it at this point. I may have been better off just firing a volley at roughly the right distance and hoping that I got its sails or its mast. But one or two decent hits on it. And with these kind of guns from a ship of this class, that's really all you need. And at this time I didn't want to turn in with the wind too much, as I was worried it would take me completely out of the combat again. I'm just trying to deal with these two Trincomalee, but just underestimating my arc of fire too much. That and being a little bit too stationary, I wasn't able to raise the guns quite as high as I'd wanted. Not completely ineffective, but no significant damage. And I'm just trying to fall in line with the rest of our ships and take advantage of the drop in maneuverability of their Bellona there. Taking a huge amount of damage, and they've caused my rudder to become virtually useless, which is a good thing. It gave me some practice with having to use my sails to move myself about a bit, and not to mention that the ship itself actually, not the ship itself, sorry, the battle itself just required me to pay a little bit more attention to what was going on, and I don't think it was a total disadvantage to have the rudder damage, but it made me think more carefully about the moves that I was having to make for the rest of this time. With the need to kind of position myself more carefully, I tried to, I think, focus a lot of my fire onto the Trincomalee. At this point, I'm not really overly focused on stuff like the Bellona or even the Navy brig, as they're outside my sphere of influence. I'm not able to get my guns or my ship into a position where I can have any effect on them, and the Trincomalee actually helped me a little in this, where they just stuck with me, basically. They obliterated my ship, of course, but it also meant that I was able to return some fire against them. I mean, just look at that. All those splinters flying off everywhere from my poor beleaguered Cerberus. And I dropped to full sail, just trying to bring my guns round, desperately hoping that I can get some shots off from my right hand side and not have to wait too long. And my left as well, actually. I've got my shots coming back in. It'll give me a chance to size up where I need to hit them. Trying not to continue underestimating where my shots are going. Fortunately, despite my very quick turn of shots there, I was actually able to achieve some small modicum of influence. And unfortunately also my pump took serious damage, so I'm going to be I'm kind of forced in this position to just monitor my water levels much more closely and stick to survival, which out of all my matches seems to be my favourite mode to put my crew into. I think just desperately trying to pump that water out regardless of the condition of my pumps. Throwing my repairs underway and just trying to last long enough for my larger ships to finish the cleanup, as it were. At this point, there's not too much I can do. I'm just trying to get those last few shots in. As at this stage, it's, you know, it's very much going to be on my team. And while I started off in a fairly weak position and wasn't helping out too much, this has put me, I guess, in a reasonable position. Not my ship in a reasonable position, of course. I'm most assuredly going to sink at this point. But I've contributed to the team, which is all I really try to do at the moment. Still learning the controls. Here I go. I've turned myself completely into the wind. Just desperately trying to get my ship to an angle where I can catch just a bit of breeze and move myself. Also hoping that they're going to come into the Trincomalee is going to come into my range of fire. Slow, inexhaustible march of the currents just pushing me around just a little bit. Inch by inch. Pretty excited to be able to hit him there. The one little bit of damage that I can do in these last few seconds as I catch the wind and just try to get out of bed, desperately rushing to avoid his guns as he brings them to bear on me. I'm hoping at this point that he's occupied by my ally on the other side, shooting him. And, you know, at this point it's looking fairly solid. But no, he remembers I'm there. I did a reasonable job of managing my repair kits this game. Everyone being used kind of on the borderline between my sinking and my surviving, and it's carried me through quite nicely. It's quite amazing the kind of punishment these ships can take, and while to a degree it makes sense, you know, these are only small metal balls that are going into these constructs of wood. It's the force that they're carried with that's quite impressive. Oof. And down he goes as I capsize him. I think he was already sunk at that point, but I just wanted to finish the job, as it were. I wasn't too sure if he was playing possum. He was going to rise back up and, make sail again and continue to shoot us. Now the Lynx has escaped almost completely undamaged. It's just casually strolling in to clean up. I'm barely afloat at this point. And with probably even reasonable piloting, I might have been alright. But he makes an absolute fool of me, and over the course of the next few minutes, you'll see anyway, but he essentially just plays me for a fool. And the exceptional piloting by this Lynx has well, as I was saying earlier, will have a measurable impact on the game, that's for sure. It very much changes, well, it changes the way that the game plays out in the end. As his actions will dominate the next few minutes as the lone survivor of his fleet. Spoilers, he gets me. He well and truly sinks me here. I got impatient, I was getting scared. I just gave the order to fire, quickly get him out of the way, but no, he comes through. The fire weaving, and is able to pelt me with a significant broadside of double shot from 4-pound guns, I believe. So he's able to get the reloads off. He then catches the wind and swoops away. Meanwhile, my ship and its 70-odd% sails are trying to maneuver us, but it's just not working. My crew's working on a broken pump. We see him circling back around like a shark, bombarding the front of our ship, just making sure all these holes add up. Few small hits from us, but nothing to really worry him. Just dashes out of our way again. Got nothing to maneuver with. And at this point, of course, we're downwind, so our allies really can't come to our rescue here. Though they do try. There's the odd volley shots, but his positioning means that they're like to hit us as much as him. And trying to hit a small ship at this range in some of those larger ships is very, very difficult. They sit very low in the water, and it's a matter of millimeters when you're aiming that dispatches that chooses that basically sets where the shells are dispatched to, which side of the ship they fall on. Keeping in mind, of course, my rudder being damaged here is part of the reason I'm not able to get him into my line of sight. It's that and my relatively poor sail control. And of course, his excellent piloting. He does a very good job with his positioning, and his timing for his turns is excellent. Not to, dismiss his actual performance in this, which was good. I mean, for no other reason than this Lynx this Lynx was the reason that I wanted to put this video up. It's rather amusing. Oh, got me good. It's this kind of stuff, you know, you cannot count out the performance of these smaller ships. And you can't really predict the kind of role they'll have into the late game. Not that you want to target the small ships early on, but you have to be aware of them and you have to pay attention to where they're coming from, what position they're occupying, what kind of guns they've got. Because you can get rid of every big ship, but if your ships are all in too poor a condition to handle the small darting vessels, you're not going to be really going to be able to survive the end game. Anyway, we switch over now to the view from our allies, as these two massive ships are just sitting, waiting for the little ship to kind of come to them. It's one of the unfortunate things about the way Naval Action's set up is that the area will get smaller and smaller, and so you're very much forced to come to one another and basically end in a clash. I have mixed feelings about it. Sometimes I think it's unfortunate, sometimes I think it's fortunate. Certainly when you're versing, you know, a single opponent, it can feel very drawn out, waiting or trying to chase them down, and so the closing area does make it easier. But when you're a little ship facing off against these two huge Leviathans, well, relatively Leviathan-esque, it's not a pleasant kind of thing to have to go back and fight them. And in an open sea, you'd probably just run and hope you get away. Even still, though, I mean, the kind of firepower that misses him here. His sails are taking the brunt of the beating. I think his sails are actually much more damaged than the animation for them is at the moment, or the textures for them are. But he does an excellent job of parking himself right on the rear of our Constitution, old salty. And Jack Morris is not given the opportunity to kind of open fire on the Lynx, at least as often as he'd like, just because of his positioning there. Unfortunately, though, the combined efforts of two large class, well, they're actually mid-class ships, but they're large class in relation to a Lynx, are a little bit much. He's not able to avoid their crossfire forever. Oh, you know, a little while longer. I find stuff like this is one of the things that impresses me most about this game, and what keeps bringing me back to play it fairly often, as I do anyway. I try to get a couple of games in a day. It's just him parking himself right on the end of the ship there, kind of daring them to open fire, hit one another. Well done to all the combatants in this. It was certainly an entertaining match. And as always, it's been Death Stimulator. Thanks very much for watching. If you do enjoy the video, let us know, and do consider liking, commenting, favoriting, or subscribing, as your support does mean the world to me. Have a great day.